Hey guys, you think this car is here for another 200-300 horsepower? You're dead wrong. Think again. As the old adage goes, less is more, and this 2019 Grand Sport is certainly no exception. Hey guys, Erik here, Florida High Performance. Welcome back to our YouTube channel. We've got a very unique, very special episode for you today. I have here Mike's 2019 Grand Sport Corvette. Now, I know what you're thinking, oh, this is another Grand Sport, another 200-300 horsepower build. Well, in fact, it is quite the opposite. We took a car that was already modified, had already made a lot of horsepower, and we actually detuned it. That's right, we detuned it. We went the other way. So when we were talking to Mike about his expectations of what this car should and should not do, we really wanted to focus on the end results. So we would ask things like, how much power are you looking to make? What type of fuel are you looking to run in this car? And how often are you going to drive it? In Mike's case, he was looking to run 93 octane, did not want to run E85, did not want to mess with meth injection, and he wanted to make sure it was super reliable. In other words, wanted to get in it, drive anywhere, anytime, didn't want the bucking and the surging that we typically associate with a larger cammed car. Again, Mike and his wife bought this vehicle already modified. In fact, it was built by our friends at A&A Superchargers in California. It ended up on the west coast of Florida. That's where they found it. It's a beautiful car. After watching one of our YouTube videos, Mike actually reached out, told me a little about the build, what his goals were. We got right to work. Upon initial inspection, we saw things like an A&A Supercharger. We knew the car had a big cam in it. We knew the engine was modified previously. So we didn't want to take anything off that he already had. We want to try to utilize as many of the parts that were on here that we could. The previous builder decided to put a forged piston and rod setup in the stock bottom end LT1, essentially making it a forged 377 cubic inch engine. The question is, why would they do that? Well, as we all know, the stock bottom end LT1s are not really suited for boost. The limitation maybe is between 600 and 650 wheel. Well, this car was probably making somewhere in the realm of 650 to 700 horsepower. So there were still some unknowns with the engine, things like valve train, push rods, rocker arms. We didn't know if anything was done to the cylinder head, so we had to dig deeper. We knew that we were gonna have to take the engine out of the car to kind of get down to the nitty gritty. We knew it had good internals, but really that was about it. The most important thing with this build and what we were after was drivability. I wanted to give them back a car that would start and run, drive anywhere, anytime, a lot like the other builds here at Florida High Performance. The first thing we talked about was the engine modifications. We knew the engine was coming out of the car. We knew we were gonna have to change a few things. So first order of business was speccing a proper camshaft. He didn't want to go with a stock cam, but didn't want a cam that was quite as large as what was in there. So we turned to our friends at Tooley Racing and went with one of their stage 1 centrifugal blower cams. The second issue this car had was a lot of low-speed bucking and surging. We weren't sure what torque converter the car had in it, but I had an idea, had a suspicion that it was the stock converter. Sure enough, it was. We reached out to our friends at Circle D, who were able to provide us with a perfectly spec'd 8-speed torque converter that would smooth out the entire driving experience of this Corvette. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it was very important that this car ran on 93 octane. No E85, no meth injection, and no other alternative fuel sources were really required for this type of build. This car did come equipped with an alky control methanol system, which we love to use here, but for Mike and what he was trying to do with the car really wasn't necessary. I felt that it was another system that ultimately he would have to maintain and pay attention to, and it sort of took away from that overall reliability and ease of maintenance from what we were after in this vehicle. Now, don't get me wrong, guys, that's not to say that meth injection is not reliable. It most certainly is, and we use it on a lot of the builds here at Florida High Performance. But again, we're going back to customer expectations. We're going back to what it was that he wanted specifically. The meth injection kit on this particular car really didn't suit the needs and the wants, and ultimately we made the decision to get rid of it. One of the biggest issues that we faced, and one of the most important things that we actually nailed in this car, was the exhaust smell. Oftentimes these cars come in with no catalytic converters or some sort of emission systems that's been deleted or whatever the case. And unfortunately, especially with a large camshaft, that can introduce raw fuel smell when these cars are running. We wanted to use his existing headers. We reached out to our friends at Cook's. They sent us their ever popular set of green cats. We were able to add the green cats to his existing X-pipe, which in the end helped reduce costs to the client, and it reduced the emissions and the smell ultimately coming from the tailpipe of this car. One of the other things we noticed about this particular Grand Sport was the bypass valve noise that was being generated by the A&A Supercharger. Now, again, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love that sound. There's nothing better than getting on a centrifugal supercharger, letting off the gas and hearing that rush of air. That's just not what our client wanted. Again, they were going after a little bit smoother, a little bit quieter ride. So what we decided to do is reach out to our friends at A&A, who were able to supply us with a bypass valve muffler kit. Essentially what that achieves is a quieter bypass. So when they get into the throttle and let off, the car doesn't sound like a vacuum cleaner going down the street. It just helped add to the overall drivability and what I would consider tameness of this build. One other minor change that we made to this car, which may not seem like a big deal to you guys, but to Mike it was the windshield washer. Now with the meth system, he did not have a functioning windshield washer, and it was sort of annoying to him. So not only did we uninstall the meth system, but we were able to actually get his washer function working again, which again, seems minor, but when you're talking about you know, kind of refining a build and making the car something that the customer wants, even the smallest details matter. So while the engine was out getting the new camshaft, we also took the opportunity to have the cylinder heads looked at. We determined that the cylinder heads were in fact stock ports, that they had not been CNC machined. So I talked to Mike, I said, tell you what, while everything's apart, why don't we have the head CNC'd, we can have the valves replaced, have the guides done. We turned to our friends at Late Model Engines, of course, to handle that aspect of the build. And while we were in there, we also replaced the lifters. We went with our tried and true Johnson lifters, Manton push rods. We went with the BTR trunnion kit as well on the rocker arm. So we sort of put the Florida high performance touch on this engine that was already modified, adding that extra layer of reliability and overall maintenance-free performance that he was looking for. So guys, it's not every day. We actually have the customer here. So let's hear from Mike. Let's get his perspective on this Grand Sport and exactly what we did.
Hello, everyone. Give you some background on my red Corvette right here over at Florida High Performance. We're ready to pick it up now. It's running smooth. I couldn't be more pleased with it. So I really advise anybody that needs their work done on a high performance car, like a Corvette or a Camaro, to look up Erik. Working with him was great. He took us through every step. He made some changes on the way that were very, very much needed. And I couldn't say more working with him. He's one of the best. I made an excellent choice in doing that. So I would advise anybody, if they need work again, to come and see Erik.
All right, so we've gone over the build, we went over the expectations, right? We talked about what we did to the car and how we actually were able to detune this Grand Sport. Let's talk about the horsepower. So some of you may be thinking, well, you know, it sounds like you took some boost out of it. Sounds like you went with a smaller cam. Sounds like you sort of demasculated this build. Well, in fact, we did not, and we were able to actually make quite a bit of power. On 6 pounds of boost, 93 octane on a factory LT1 fuel system. That's a factory LT1 high side and no auxiliary low side, which is pretty impressive, if I say so myself. Car made 618 rear wheel horsepower and 547 foot-pounds of torque. So for the performance haters out there, the guys that are asking why on earth would you demod a Grand Sport that came highly modified, well, the answer is short and sweet. It's what the customer wanted, and as you can see, we were still able to make very, very respectable numbers. He can drive this car anywhere, anytime, on pump gas. Hey, it's a win-win. Guys, I told you when we moved to the new shop that we were going to be putting out a ton of fresh, original content. Right, we're always looking to build the best cars here at Florida High Performance, and sometimes that means less. Sometimes it means demodding. Sometimes it means going back to the drawing board, right, deconstructing what has already been built and making it that much better. And it's exactly what we did here on Mike's 2019 Grand Sport. Hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, comment. I will get back to your comments. And as always, we'll see you next time here on the Florida High Performance YouTube channel.